And welcome everyone to the Pump Fake Pod. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Is that a P5 school I see? We don't have the Patriot League tonight. I can't believe it. It's a P5 school. Always love talking mid-majors and low majors, but we've done it all. We've touched them all. I believe that is our 20. We've done 26 previews. So this will be our 27th. It's 28, 29, 30, 31. I don't know. I'm done on the math, but we're doing it, and we're almost there, and we're not finally at the P5 stage into the Warhol. So it's been a hell of an off season, and we're now only less than 2 weeks away from the NCAA season kicking off for our big mega show on Sunday, November 2nd, up until the 24-hour slate on Monday, November 3rd. I can't wait for it. And now we're talking Big East. How we feeling, boys? Elliot, Trevor, let's go. We've done it. We've done a lot. We're working hard, and it's almost here.
Yeah, ready for the season to start. It's less than 2 weeks. I'm excited.
Trevor loves reading just spreads and over and unders. That's his jam. He loves this. He loves just getting down to it and just being like, "Hey, this is the spread," and then also just it's always good entertainment on our recap shows early in the first 10 minutes as well. But we've always been up 100 plus. We were up collectively 120 units last season. It's impressive stuff. Trevor and I have both made in the 50 units a couple times. So we're here, baby. And I know the Big East has paid us a lot. And it's a conference that we like to bet out of all the P5 schools. Elliot, Mr. Big 12 guru, Kansas State. How we feeling? Almost there. Big 12 tomorrow, but we got the Big East ahead. How we feeling for it?
Yeah, doing good, man. Just one step closer, one day closer to opening day. Looking forward to it. I've got K-State, Missouri on SEC Network Friday in a scrimmage. So excited for that. And then good old KU Hate Week for football. Got K-State, KU on Saturday, Sunflower Showdown. So big weekend ahead, and then kind of leading into the last week before basketball. So looking forward to it.
I'm pumped up for it as well. And now we have 11 teams to go through. The Big East used to be 16 teams, used to be a juggernaut. You had like DePaul. I mean, they still have DePaul, but like South Florida, you had Rutgers, you had all these teams. Great Big East, 30 for 30. You had legendary coaches all throughout the genesis of the Big East, 70s, 80s, and then all the way up until the mid 2000s, and then kind of started getting chopped down. But that Big East tournament was always fun. It still is. I still enjoy the Big East. It just kind of feels a little lesser, in my opinion, of the P5 schools in college basketball. No football conference anymore, but there's always some good basketball, and I feel like they play on Friday nights a lot as well.
Yeah, trimmed down on teams, but it's still fun stuff. Can't beat it.
I'd have to agree. Red Man, thanks for joining us. Ken Hat, appreciate you always. Some OGs in the chat. You've been riding with us this off season, and we appreciate that and support. It means a lot. Without further ado, we'll get into this. But first, I guess it's not without further ado, but make sure to like and subscribe. This is the Pump Fake Pod. We're almost done with all of our conference previews. Every conference recorded. Players, coaches, systems. Unbelievable. So, and yeah, Redman, Western Kentucky, what a win. If anyone got to see the end of that game, it was fantastic. And Hilltoppers +3 or +4.5 was awesome. Okay. Big East, everyone. Any final thoughts before we get into it, Elliot? And any love for the Big East you want to share?
I'm just excited to see the Patinos battle. Father-son duo here in the Big East now. So looking forward to that and seeing how that kind of unfolds. And we'll see, I know Patino was Daddy Patino was getting interviewed. Was watching a couple interviews earlier. Said, his time may be coming up. So possibly year 2 left, maybe. We'll see.
They drew that up behind the scenes. I feel like that's for sure. But good stuff there for Patino going to Xavier, and then we also just have just some returning coaches and also a new coach in Kevin Willard in Villanova after their run with Maryland. with Derek Queen and buzzer beater, fun stuff last year. So a lot of new faces, a lot of familiar faces, and I think maybe some teams at the top of the conference that are familiar as well, and from last season. So yes, Raymond, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you guys. The Butler Bulldogs out of Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm from the north side, 317 Indianapolis. Let's go. Last season, 15-20. Butler full, a bunch of rich trust fund kids from the East Coast anyway. But anywho, Big East, 6-14 last year, tied for 8th, one returning starter, and Thad Matta. I couldn't believe this was his record. When I typed this in, I could not believe this was his record at Butler. I didn't think that he had a winning record here, but it just feels disappointing, and that's why it kind of feels like it has been. But I all respect to Thad Matta. He's coaching through some health problems, so prayers to him. It seems like he's been kind of doing much better, and I don't know if he's necessarily translating well to the NIL as much as others, and this transfer portal and just the new age of college basketball. Talent wise, they're going to have some issues returning really no one, and I think lower. They're going to have one of the lowest talented teams in this conference. Personally, don't really bring much in their backcourt and front court into shooting. I think that they can be coachable and be physical. They kind of play a press under Thad Matta, which I think is always good and can limit possessions. Or if the press breaks, it's high scoring, so they have to be able to match on offense. And I don't foresee them always doing that, but they can at home. They're pretty good at Hinkle Fieldhouse, so they're always going to be able to win some games with Big East, but I think we're going to see a familiar season to last year, unfortunately, as well.
Yeah, one returning starter, 3 total players coming back for Thad. They got some decent pieces. I mean, Jalen Jackson from IPFW, almost 20 points a game. Ajayi from Gonzaga, and then Yame Butler from Drexel. So they got some notable pieces that could help this team, but Thad Matta and this team just never really had continuity or been able to carry anything over. I feel like Butler's still kind of hanging around from that the Brad Stevens days a little bit, and they're just nowhere near that. And now you got an entirely new roster. Thad Matta almost looked checked out at times last year. I don't think they're going to be the worst in this conference, but I'm not too high on Butler this year. I don't expect a whole bunch from them. I think their ceiling is like finishing 5th or 6th in the conference.
Yeah, and I have to agree with you there. Maybe potentially going upwards, but there is more talented teams in the Big East we'll talk about, I think, and some improved lower end teams. Elliot, how we feeling about the school that will get outdrank by anyone in Indiana? That's for damn sure. Ball State will outdrink Butler, no problem. How we feeling?
Yeah, I think you guys kind of hit it on the head there. Been a disappointing second venture here with Butler for Matta. I'm like you. I can't believe that the 71-61. I know it's above 500, but it just doesn't feel like the success that he should have, or we should. He's known for there at that Butler program. But I do like some of the guys they brought in. They did bring a top 25 recruiting class in as well. So a lot of freshmen that they brought in. Along with that, brought in a kid in Dizi from Italy. Should maybe play a role, but I was looking for kind of some box scores on the scrimmages. I know they lost to Illinois, and then they just actually lost to your Hoosiers Huff a couple of days ago. But I haven't had a chance to look at the box score to kind of see who they were playing to kind of get a real feel on maybe who the starters were. But yeah, I think their biggest get is the Ajayi from Gonzaga. I think he's just a seasoned veteran now, 22 years old, kind of in a successful program. Now you bring him over to a program that's struggled last year. I think that's a good get for Thad Matta, and that could, maybe lay the foundation there to get some more wins. But still in a tough competitive Big East, not too high on them. I do think Finley Bizjack, he might be able to pick up his scoring. I think he averaged just over 10 a game last year. But I'm kind of right there with you guys. I think, Thad's looking for, another probably somewhat disappointing season comparative to his first venture with the Bulldogs here. I would say maybe, flip the record 2015, but still be somewhere at like that 9-11, 8-12 type of a range there in the Big East.
Yeah, I mean, you'll see. I think they have a potential. I think they could be a wild card just with the intangibles that they bring. Let's see. I can't. I'm trying to find the score as well for the Butler scrimmages, but I can't. But I don't get too high on scrimmages just because people are changing rotations. Their coaches are trying to figure some things out. It's definitely like a preseason type feel with the NFL, and the Dolphins are 2-1 in preseason this season. So if that means
No,
anything,
I utilize the scrimmages more so to see what freshmen are playing, especially with the Butler
correct.
squad that had top 25 recruiting class in the freshman ranks. I like to see who's playing, who's not, because that'll tell me who's going to be redshirting or not. I also kind of like to look at the school's websites. Sometimes they'll already list the red shirts, so that's another way to kind of look and see who will possibly be some pieces coming off the bench for them.
You got to dive deep on college basketball. That's definitely what we do here. Pump Fake Pod tries to consolidate that information for you, but again, there's so many different websites. Sometimes you got to go directly to the source, like Elliot said, makes a great point. So, but yeah, I love that these teams are doing these like secret scrimmages now, and they're not so secret because Trilly Donovan tweets it out and stuff. So, but yeah, good pieces brought in. The chat's super high on Butler. It looks like. So maybe it could be an improvement from 6-14 last year for Thad Matta. I cannot believe he was 71-61. He's a great coach. The Creighton Jays out of Omaha last season, 25-11, 15-5, tied for second. 2 returning starters for Coach Greg McDermott at 350 and 171 there for 15 years, and it's been successful. It was an Elite 8 appearance only that the farthest he's been, correct? Correct me if I'm wrong. You bring back assistant coach Alan Huss. They just had their media day today or yesterday. I can't remember. And you had he was talking about Alan Huss as well, bringing in assistant coach. So it feels like that's kind of like a transition period. Maybe the succession planning for the Creighton Jays going on potentially for Greg McDermott. You bring back 2 returning starters. You lose Pop Isaacs, you lose Jemiah Neal, Stephen Ashworth, who tried out for the Pacers and got cut. It looks like some starters that are going to be here are going to be Nick Graves, who comes in, Blake Harper, Jackson McAndrew, and then Owen Freeman, big transfer from Iowa as well. So, Creighton's always going to be good. They're going to bring that kind of style of play where they want to shoot and have tall guys that can stretch the floor and play that kind of positionless basketball, which I think is really fun to watch, and at times can be volatile because when they're off, they're off. But I know what we're going to get with Creighton under McDermott team, and it's going to be a 20-win season regardless, I think, of who steps in the gym. I don't think it's going to be a step back at all. They have tons of talent yet again, even only bringing back 2 returning starters. I like Creighton here. I think they're going to be very competitive in this conference.
Yeah, no Ashworth, and Kalkbrenner's a huge loss for this team. So I think it's going to take a little bit out the gate for them to kind of figure out the roles and everything else. I mean, they start the season with their first 10 games at the Players Era Festival. They got to see Baylor, Iowa State, they go to Gonzaga and Nebraska, and then host Kansas State all in the first 10 games. So they've got to really figure it out early out the gate, or this could kind of get away from them a little bit if they're struggling early. But they still have a lot of talent on this team, and then getting Alan Huss back is a huge get for them too. So I think they'll be fine, but I think early in the season it's going to take a little bit of getting used to for each other, especially given how tough the schedule is. But I'm with you. I think Creighton will be right there at the end, but I think early is going to be a little bit of a struggle bus for Creighton early.
Yeah, they're gonna, Owen Freeman, definitely a good get coming in from Iowa, but he is no Kalkbrenner. You're losing the guy that was center of the year last year, 4-time Big East Defensive Player of the Year. You're losing your rim protector and just a guy that was a huge piece for them. So I agree that I think they will struggle early, but I think they also will struggle a little bit depends on how these pieces that they brought in. Josh Dix, another guy that they brought in from Iowa. He's just kind of your typical guy, kind of a Stephen Ashworth guy who's going to just shoot the ball at a high clip, that McDermott always typically brings in. And then another guy that I'm high on is that Blake Harper. You had mentioned him. He comes in from Howard. He was the freshman MEAC, I shouldn't even say freshman of the year, obviously, but he was also the MEAC player of the year as a freshman. So pretty impressive that he did that. And I think that they're going to really rely on him. 28th nationally in scoring, had 5 30-point games. So expect him to definitely produce on an even bigger stage. I think he's got the talent to do so, and I think he's going to definitely do that. And then another guy that I expect to kind of play some good minutes and replace a little bit of Kalkbrenner as well is Jackson McAndrew. He's a guy that was a starter last year, but now they're going to take him, have him take another step up and produce a little bit more now that they don't have Kalkbrenner to rely upon. But we'll see. It's just it's interesting. It's kind of an interesting situation here with Creighton, with McDermott bringing in Huss. What do you expect? Is he on his way out? Is it kind of going to be like a 1-2 year kind of a deal? There's just kind of a lot of things up in the air, and so how committed is McDermott if he's kind of on his way out? So there's a lot of factors in play. So we'll see. But I think I don't see them here in the Big East maybe being tied second like they were last year. I could see him finishing more in that fourth, fifth type range. I think maybe they take a small step back, but all in all, like you said, Huff, successful program, 20+ win season for sure incoming.
Yeah, I'm married now. Can't be too bitter, but it's definitely a good thing, and I think Creighton is going to be just fine, like we've always seen, and we see a little succession plan. If you're not thinking of succession planning, start right away. 'Cause you need to be doing it now. I think that's what Greg McDermott noticed in this kind of portal to try to keep the Creighton transition. So we'll see what we're talking about here in the next few years. Potential new coach hire within. DePaul Blue Demons. Whoa. Chicago, Illinois last season, 14-20, 4-16 in the Big East. One returning starter for Chris Holtmann. It was his first year. But before then, 3-29 season before. Hasn't been to an NCAA tournament since 2004. One winning season over the last 18 years. Holy cow! This is the worst P5 school, and a joke, and a storied program. They were a good team back in the old Big East days. So I don't know. This kind of feels like a B-list movie. IU rebuild with Tom Crean, a similar win count. Not in the Big Ten or whatever. It was a tough year, but it took them about two years to take over and get the things kind of rolling in some fashion. And I think that's what we're going to see in Chris Holtmann. He's kind of done that with a couple other programs as well. And you retain 4 semi-rotational starters in C.J. Gunn, N.J. Benson, Theo Pierre-Justin, and Layden Blocker. C.J. Gunn, IU transfer, who really couldn't shoot the ball under Mike Woodson, kind of found his stride under Holtmann. So I think he's a good coach, kind of is able to teach. But you just kind of have a bunch of like average guys versus some of these star-powered players. But again, another wild card team, especially in Holtmann's second year. You bring in Caleb Banks from Tulane, who is going to start right away. He took a massive leap. Another transfer from IU. Him and C.J. Gunn with some continuity together as well. You have a Colorado transfer in R.J. Smith, and then a Radford transfer in Brandon Macklin as well too. So I like those guys. Tons of good pieces for DePaul. I think this could be a potential wild card team and not necessarily an automatic cellar dweller like we've been seeing in the end. But again, a step in the right direction is massive. They finished 10th in a 10-man 11-man league. I think they could potentially flirt with taking a jump from 10th and moving in the right direction under Chris Holtmann as he tries to build this DePaul program back to prominence. It's been a while, if any. Agreed, Raymond.
Yeah, DePaul, 2 returning starters coming back. So I mean, that's nice. They at least got to retain some bit of that production from last year. But they got some decent power forward transfers. And then, some notable names, Caleb Banks, Kemon Maker, and then Yeah, Caleb Banks and Tamon Maker. But other than that, I mean, they don't really have much. But Chris Holtman got a lot out of nothing last year. Now you're going to retain some of those guys, and you're going to bring in some decent pieces. I think they can take a little step forward too. Um, given I feel like this conference is very top heavy, and then it's kind of just um, not really the same. But I don't think there's significant drop off from like 10th place to fifth place, sixth place in this conference. So I think DePaul can take a little bit of a step forward this year under Holtman. And yeah, I think they'll be fun again. I don't know if they're going to spring any upsets. I mean, I don't know how much of an upset you could say UConn was because they were really poor in the conference play and whatnot last year. But still, a huge win for them to get that at home. So last year, so I think they can kind of build on and take a little step forward this year for DePaul.
Yeah, the only kind of pushback I'd say, I think I'm right there with you guys. But the thing I'd ask is, if DePaul's kind of been that the cellar dweller, people have really kind of just overlooked them when they're playing. So the fact that they improved upon last year, are people going to take them a little bit more seriously this year, and maybe prepare and get up for them a little bit more? That would be my only counterpoint. But I agree. I think I agree with Raymond there in the chat. I think DePaul got their guy with Chris Holtman. They had the biggest KenPom rating improvement out of any NCAA Division I school last year. Finished 304th the year before. Last year, 122nd. I feel like they're going to jump into the top 100 this year. As you saw last year, DePaul's, they're going to play kind of that 4 out 1 in, or if they do have two bigs, one of them is going to be that 6'7" to 6'10" guy that can shoot from the outside. They're going to shoot the 3-point ball at a high rate, and I think that bodes well for a couple guys that you had mentioned coming in, particularly Brandon Macklin is a guy I'll highlight from Radford, and then a freshman, Cruz McClure. I think he's going to be a guy who averaged 23.5 points a game at DME Academy there in Ohio, was a Mr. Basketball finalist there at Ohio before transferring to DME Academy. I think he's going to be one of those guys that's coming in right off the bench, and we'll see him make kind of an immediate impact as a freshman. But yeah, I'm right there with you. I think they do take another step forward, and I feel like I'm looking at maybe a 6-14 season, 8-12 season, something like that. If they can protect home court a little bit more, maybe they'll get a little more fans there in the stadium, just with a little bit higher expectation. And maybe they can protect home court a little bit more than they have in the past.
Their problem is the home court, so it's going to be interesting to see if Holtman's going to have to. He's going to have to win. It's the only way to get some people there, because it's a massive slap in the face of how they felt fandom wise. Shout out Cannabis Capper, friend of the program. You'll see him guest host a couple of these betting shows throughout the year. And he is a DePaul Blue Demon fan of all teams. The Hoyas of Georgetown, Washington, D.C. Last season, 18-16, 8-12 in the Big East. One returning starter, Ed Cooley, 27-39. So you're seeing he actually got in double digits, and 27-39. I think Georgetown definitely took a step up in the right direction. You do lose a ton of pieces that were massive for the program, but stepping up with Cooley, he's found a way to win as well. You do bring back that Harvard transfer from last year who got into the program, and Mack. I really like Malik Mack. Sometimes he's kind of takes over a little of the game too much, in my opinion. But hopefully he, with experience into the Big East, that he can get a happy that sorry, not get a little more shoot happy and trigger happy. Langston Love comes in as well from Baylor, familiar name. That's going to be a massive piece. That's going to be down low that I think is going to replace some key pieces lost last year in their front court. And then Big Ten All Freshman last year into Deshaun Harris-Smith. I think it's going to take a next step for this Georgetown team and be a person here to stay for the Hoyas. So Cooley, taking the steps in the right direction, proven winner, proven good coach. And I think he's going to move this Georgetown team back to a lot of prominence. A lot of these teams trying to rebuild in this transfer era, and in the last 10 to 15 years, like we've mentioned in this conference. And Georgetown's definitely on the fast track. I like what they've done, and the pieces that they've brought in are impressive. And I think this could be a team that contends in this conference.
Yeah. I mean, leading off, losing Sorber is a gigantic loss for them. They still had Sorber when they got KJ Lewis, Jeremiah Williams, and Langston Love. This I would have been really high on Georgetown, but I still like all these pieces they brought. But it's basically an entirely new roster here. You lost Sorber, who was the main, the straw that stirred the drink last year for this Georgetown team, and now you lose him, and now you're going to bring in a bunch of transfers and P5 guys that are, they're pretty damn good players. So how are they going to mesh? If they can figure it out and mesh, I think Georgetown could be really good, but it could also potentially be a lot of ego in that locker room to where they kind of just don't mesh well. But regardless, I still think Georgetown's going to be, a step above the Butlers, the DePauls, the Seton Halls of this conference, but I don't think they're going to find themselves, contending in the top 3 or 4 of this conference. So I think Georgetown takes a little step forward. I just don't think it's a significant step. It's just a matter of Cooley. He did change the culture a little bit in Georgetown from what it has been, but completely new rosters and whatnot. Granted, it's talented players, but I just want to see how they mesh and figure this out. But I'm respectable on Georgetown. I wouldn't say I'm a high or anything on them, but I respect them. I think they do have potential on this roster. And if Cooley can figure it out and get them playing together, I think they could be pretty damn decent.
E-money.
Yeah, I'm higher on Georgetown. I think that a lot of people. I like what Ed Cooley did last year. I know you mentioned the loss of Sorber. However, he only played in 24 games, was kind of hurt all throughout the year, so it wasn't really up to, like at 100% for most of the year. So the fact that they kind of still had some success with him kind of in and out of the lineup shows me at least, that they've got some continuity back, and they might not miss him as much as you may think. But yeah, KJ Lewis was a big get. I'll mention Jeremiah Williams. He's a guy came in from Rutgers, kind of was a surprise transfer they got near the last little bit of summer. So I expect him to kind of be another guy there in the guard realm that'll be in the backcourt with KJ Lewis and Langston Love. And that's kind of why I'm high on him. You bring Mac back as the point guard. And then you also have, KJ Lewis and Langston Love, both from a Big 12 schools, top Big 12 schools, who are going to be competitive, who know how to play. Both guys that play defense as well as offense. And then you bring in a guy like Jeremiah Williams from Rutgers, who's another guy that, may split some time there at the point, and another guy that's going to play tough physical defense along with being able to handle the rock. And then I think it's a big stepping point for Caleb Williams. He was behind Sorber last year. He came in and he did a good job when kind of Sorber was, out. And so I think he's going to take a big step forward here as his sophomore season. So I think I'm a little bit higher on Georgetown than most. So I'll see them kind of near, not the top of the conference, but definitely higher than 7th.
Okay. The Golden Eagles, Marquette, up in Trevor area, a little south of him though, in Milwaukee, which we all agree, outside of his love for the Brewers, it's a weird city. I think there's some weird stuff that goes on in Milwaukee personally, but that's just a preference of mine. That casino's bullshit. Last season, 23-11, 13-7 in the Big East, tied for 4th, 2 returning starters, which is kind of fake news. Rotational starters for most part, but Shaka Smart, proven winner, 98-40 for 4 years. Shaka knows how to win big games. You bring back Chase Ross and Ben Gold as well. So 2 seniors only on this team, a super young team. You have a sophomore guard in Royce Parham, who shot really efficiently last year. I think that if he's able to get a little more usage this year, focus on offense. I think that definitely could be a problem, not only for other teams, and I think he's going to be able to take that next step to score even as a sophomore. Tons of freshmen on this team, so Shaka may have some hurdles here at the beginning of the season, but come Big East team play, I think he can get these guys cooking. They got tons of talent, young talent, that maybe he can build some a little camaraderie with, and build for the future, not only for this season, but maybe retain talent, which is tough to have. I'm sure you lose some guys and some shrapnel, of course, always in the portal. But if you can keep your big pieces, start retaining like you did, you lose Cam Jones, who just had a traffic incident. I don't know necessarily what went on, but sounded like it was crazy. Think everything's okay. He was at practice today, made a statement. So all love to Cam Jones and go Pacers. And but yeah, now that you kind of have more guys that you can go to, depth, versatility comes into factor where you're going to spread the floor more and not have all these superstars necessarily going to play. So I like Marquette. A lot of people aren't as high on Marquette in the media polls, just due to their inexperience. But I think Shaka can get them going come Big East play. But it ain't going to be the Marquette that we know and love. I don't think record wise.
Yeah, Chase Ross and Ben Gold I mean, they were like starters slash rotational players, but um, Ben Gold, I think, is going to have a step up year. I mean, last year they asked him to do a lot down low, and he's not the biggest dude. Yes, he's tall, but he's like 185, like soaking wet. So they got two redshirt big men back, and one of them, Josh Clark, is 7'1", 235. So um, guessing he's going to take over the center position and control the rim and defensively and rebounds. So that'll allow Gold to shoot threes. We know he can. We played his props a few times last year. So I think it's going to open the door up for him scoring wise more. But 10 returning players from this team last year. I mean, Shaka retained a lot of this roster, and Shaka always has his guys ready. And his guys, if they really hated the amount of bullshit and hard practice and everything else that Shaka puts them through, they would have left, but they all stayed. So I think there's a strong continuity on this team. Yes, they're missing kind of the name brand pieces that we've gotten accustomed to, but Chase Ross and Ben Gold will be solid. And then adding that Josh Clark down low, I think is just going to make Ben Gold even better this year. So I'm fairly high on Marquette. I got them finishing near the top per usual. Again, it's just this conference feels more top heavy with talent versus new coaches and kind of reinvigorated lineups and teams with hitting the portal a lot where Marquette didn't. So I think they got a lot of continuity, and I think they're going to be just fine. I think it'll be another kind of Marquette year. They'll lose some games they shouldn't lose, and then they'll steal some games they have no business in, especially trailing late and whatnot. So I like Marquette. I think they'll be fine, but I don't think they'll be contending to win the Big East. But I do think they'll be up near the top.
Yeah, I see them being right here as around like the fourth or fifth here in the conference. I think a lot of retention is good. The guy I'll mention that they get back, Sean Jones, their point guard that they lost due to the ACL injury. I think he's going to be a big guy that's forgotten about. Obviously after he missed last season. So I think, with him back and all the other pieces that they bring back, I think, Marquette's going to be your typical Big East team that's going to, like you said, Trevor, pick some teams off. They're at home. Also going to lose some games where you're like, what the hell? How did they lose that game? Classic Shaka Smart. And then they're going to be a tough and scary, 5, 6, maybe 7 seed. It's probably maybe like more of a 7 seed the more I think about it, 6 or 7 seed. They're in an NCAA tournament that number 2 or 3 seed's not going to want to face. They're in the round of 32.
Great point, and great point by Raymond in the chat, and just chat's popping tonight. Really appreciate you guys tuning in here tonight, talking Big East. Great point. You don't want to see this team come March with all the depth that they have, and those young legs. That 19-year-old leg, 20-year-old leg comes in March just handy versus some of these players that are 24, 25 in college basketball now. It's crazy. Providence Friars out of Providence, Rhode Island, last season 12-20, 6-14 in the Big East, one returning starter for Kim English. But you do bring back a core group of some returning players, and Corey Floyd Jr., Rich Barron as well, and Aswin Urchwa Moonze, 6'10", 235. So I think Kim English needs to prove it to me, though, personally. You bring in some transfers that you shine in the portal with Jason Edwards from Vanderbilt, who's going to be just another great guard at Providence. I know that's going to get the dunk rocking. And then you bring in Jalen Sellers from UCF, another just amazing talent. So, I mean, the pieces are there. People are really high on Providence in the offseason. I think they believe finished 4th in the preseason media coaches poll. So I don't think that they can't just with the talent, but unfortunately, Kim English needs to prove it to me, and I think this is his prove it year potentially. So yeah, I think Providence talent wise can get it done. I need to see it, but I know that they can win games at the dunk or whatever the hell they call it. It's always going to be the dunk for me. But we know that they can get those home wins. Now, will that translate on the road? We just haven't seen it under English in the last couple of years. But I think it's possible this year to take somewhat of a step in the Big East, but I need to see it.
Yeah, I'm with you. Only one returning starter. They have 4 freshmen on this team, and then Jason Edwards, Daquan Davis, and Jalen Sellers, great additions in the portal. The guard play is going to be really good, but their front court is really what I think kind of is going to struggle and bite them in the ass. They don't really have a significant big man down low. It's going to be a rotation like freshmen and some other players, but their guard play is going to be good. So I think that is going to really help them stay in games this year. But I don't think Providence is set up to make a gigantic turnaround from like 8th to 3rd or something in this conference. But I do think they'll be better. Kim English, I'm with you. He's kind of just got to prove it. They've had some good wins, but they've also just been a terrible team for a minute. So prove it to me. But the pieces are there in this roster for them to take a step forward, which I think they will. But I don't think this is going to be the team that's going to be sneaking up on people and it's going to be sitting 2nd or 3rd in the Big East by the end of the year.
Yeah, you look at we know Kim English is a great recruiter. I mean, you look at last year, a bunch of one and done players that he brought in, Abdur Rahim, Wesley Cardette, Essendoko. They had high expectations for that team, and then look what happened to that team. Finished 12-20, 6-14, like Huffer was saying, given the rundown. So you can bring in all these pieces, but is the talent going to translate to wins? And like you said, Huff, I got to believe it to see it. I do think while Trev made a good point with the front court, they don't have necessarily a big man. I think they got 2 guys that can definitely play down low. While they're not the tallest, but Duncan Powell, a guy brought in from Georgia Tech, averaged just over 12 points a game. And then Cole Hargrove, another guy, 6'8". Both of them are about 6'8", averaged about 10 points, 8 rebounds at Drexel last year. So those are kind of 2 guys that I think they're going to rely upon in the front court. And so I think that they'll maybe have success with them. I'm with you. You got to kind of believe it to see it with the Kim English squad that definitely was very unproven last year and didn't exceed or live up to the expectations. I shouldn't even say exceed. I should just say didn't live up to the expectations that they had. So I'm right there with the.
Oh, Elliot, you're on mute.
I'm right around Providence being about 7 or 8 again. Sorry about that.
Spoiler alerts. See you at the end of the show. Seton Hall, the Pirates out of South Orange, New Jersey. Woo. Last season, 7-25. 2-18 in the Big East. 0 returning starters under Coach Shaheen Holloway. 49-53 for 3 years in the conference. It's been an interesting jump for him and a tough transition. You lose 10 pieces last year. Transfer portal, you bring in 10 new transfers. Only 2 players returning on your roster. So I'm not too high on Seton Hall this year. I love Shaheen Holloway. I think he's a good guy. I think a lot of respect for him. I think he's a good coach. but just constantly scratching this roster. Talent-wise, haven't been able to shoot the ball. They really play that kind of smash mouth D that he had over at St. Peter's. So I don't know, man. I don't think this has been good for the Big East in that transition. It's going to be tough talent-wise for the Pirates this year.
Yeah, I mean, Shaheen Holloway's, he's got a near 500 record. Given that he has roster turnover and just not a lot of anything to deal with or help him out with at Seton Hall. But they did get Bud Clark from Merrimack, our guy. Love him. They added 4 double-digit scores, so I think that's the offense can't be worse than it was last year. Like, it certainly can't. So I think adding those guys who have the ability to get buckets and score is going to be a huge help. It's just, and I think Shaheen's going to make sure that this team's locked up on defense. Like, that's his 1-1. You really don't play if you can't play defense. But adding the scores, I think you're going to get the classic Shaheen, Seton Hall, muck it up, make a nasty defense. I think there could be a little bit more pace potentially, just given that their offense on paper has more scores and guys that can score and shoot. So they shouldn't have to work at 25 seconds of every shot clock to put up a bad shot and score 47 points a game. So I think they'll be improved. They did have injuries and whatnot they had to deal with last year. So I think they'll be a little bit better. I don't think they're going to be a basement dweller. Or I think they're going to be in the basement, but I don't think they're going to be at the bottom floor, hanging out in 11th this year. But Seton Hall, I think, is just going to be one of those teams where they find themselves in some games where it's like they have no business being in, but that defense mucks it up and makes life terrible, and they have some offense. But there's also going to be games where they get blown up by 30 points, and it's going to be like, it's just same old Seton Hall. So I think they'll take a step forward. I'm not crazy high on Seton Hall yet this year, though. But props to Shaheen for having a new roster every year and almost being 500 in his Seton Hall career.
Yeah, that's what happens. I mean, Raymond brings up a good point here. The fact that no funding there at Seton Hall, and that just translates to the significant roster turnover year in and year out that Shaheen has to do there. So unfortunate situation there at Seton Hall, and maybe the revenue sharing era that starts in 26-27 will possibly be helpful for him. So we'll see about that. You expect, they bring in good guards, but they're all from lower mid majors, and so now you expect these guys to produce at the high major ranks. I just don't quite see it really working. I see that they're just going to kind of get bullied down low, kind of similar to what they had last year. They had some tough, gritty kids. They're going to play good defense. You mentioned Bud Clark, brought in Elijah Fisher, averaged 16 points at Pacific. Also did play at DePaul and Texas Tech before, but then transferred to Pacific. And then TJ Simpkins is another guy I'm high on for them. Played at Elon last year, averaged just about 15 points a game. So, they've got good guard play. However, small, undersized guards coming from the mid-major ranks, I just don't see it translating very well and them having much success yet again. I see them near the bottom, unfortunately for Shaheen, and hopefully that revenue sharing era changes some things recruiting-wise for him, like Raymond had said.
Classic points there. Absolutely. Funding-wise, if they fire him, that's a bunch of both. It's bullshit, in my opinion. I won't buy into that. And who else are they gonna get? Who else? As we're talking about no resources, who else are they gonna get? So here we are on the Pump Fake Pod diving in, but out of order here, a little unorthodox in the Big East since we bounced around. Maybe I did slides on a drive to a Whiskey Trail tour. We're going to go to UConn before St. John's since we're out of turn already. Stores, Connecticut, last season 24-11, 14-6, finished third. Disappointing. It's tough watching UConn last year, but sometimes you can get them live at home and it'd work out, but they let us down a lot. You bring 3 returning starters here and Dan Hurley. I will pass it around. Trevor, take us off. Lead us off before we go into it. How are we feeling about Connecticut this year? A lot of people are super high on them with starters returning.
Yeah, you got Solo Ball, Caravan, and Reed Jr. Returning the starters, you lost Yara Johnson, McNeely, and Mahaney, and some other players. Um, they got three solid starters coming back. You brought in Malachi Smith from Dayton, and as bad as we say UConn was, you'd think they went like almost 500 last year, but they still finished third with a 14-6 record in the Big East. You got three returning starters. You brought in some great portal players and freshmen, and as competitive as Hurley and that staff is for having such a bad year last year for UConn standards, I think they're going to be up and ready, and have these guys ready to play this year. I mean, Ball, Caravan, and Reed were all in this system last year. Caravan obviously been there, but these guys are know what's expected and how guess quote unquote bad their year was last year. I know they made a run in the tournament, but for Big East standards, they were not near what they have been under Hurley. So in recent years, so I think UConn finds it again. I think they play better than last year. I'm higher on this team. I don't think they're seriously deep and whatnot like last year's or 2 years ago UConn team, but I do think this team has potential to be better than last year. So I'm respecting UConn. I think they're going to obviously find themselves top three, finding top three in this conference, competing to win the Big East. So like UConn this year.
Yeah, I love UConn. I'll shout out all those players that you mentioned and second that. And I'll shout out Braylon Mullins from Greenwood, Indiana. Kid's a stud. He has been for a while. His brother's been in that program for quite some time. Went to Greenfield Central, so he averaged like 30 points a game in high school. 20 as like a sophomore. Kid's a stud. I think that's the missing piece that you need off the bench, and now you add more depth that UConn was kind of missing. I love UConn. They're gonna play with a chip on their shoulder after last season. Hurley was like, I don't buy into top 25 preseason. I'm like, bro, come on, like you always do. So whatever. Hurley's antics always fun to watch, even though they can be annoying at times. Elliot, round us off for the UConn Huskies.
Yeah, I think a big reason why UConn really struggled there in the Big East was kind of right at the start of Big East plays when Liam McNeely went down with that high ankle sprain, missed 8 games. Really, kind of they had started off, bad in Maui, 0-3, then kind of caught stride. I think it ended up being like 8-3, 9-3, if I can remember correctly. And then, right at the very start of Big East play, they had that high ankle sprain that kind of really kind of shocked their system, with Liam McNeely being out. So I think they stay healthy. I would expect them to finish with a lot better record in the Big East, along with the regular season, just with how Dan Hurley can just kind of utilize that as fuel to really help him going forward. And yeah, I think I was kind of surprised, that they were able to bring all their people back and not prevent people from maybe going to the NBA like Solo Ball. But now it just brings in just another volume shooter there. And we forget, we say it was a disappointing season for UConn, but what, they shot 6 for 26 from three against Florida there in the second round, and Florida didn't take their first lead until just under 3 minutes. So they almost upset Florida, who ended up winning the national championship. So one or two plays go their way, and you're looking at a good title run possibly for UConn last year. So it's pretty crazy what people can call a disappointing season for Hurley, which is what I've seen on Twitter and all over the place. Just with the fact that I know the record isn't what they wanted, but they were right there there at the end of the season, which is exactly where they're going to be this season as well.
The St. John's, the Red Storm, Queens, New York, last season 31-5, 18-2 in the Big East, finished first. Lost a lot of pieces. R.J. Louise Jr., Kadari Richmond, one returning starter. Rick Pitino, 51-18. He's a good coach, but you do bring in Bryce Hopkins from Providence, Jason Sanin from Arizona State, Dylan Mitchell, Zubi Ajayafor, And then Isaiah Sellers probably predicted starting 5 after losing tons of pieces. Ian Jackson off the bench for what? North Carolina, which not the biggest fan of, but I think Pitino can get his game into shape, no problem. Super high on them. I think the transfers, their young pieces could be good. And Patino's always going to have a chip on his shoulder and get these guys playing in the right direction. They have Alabama, November 8th. They play Kentucky this year. They're doing the Player Era Festival, I think, as well. So they're going to be having a good non-con that prepares them for the Big East play. And they're with the talent that they have and Bryce Hopkins leading them at the helm at the small forward, single shooting guard position. I'm excited to watch them kind of run and gun and play a grittier style defense like we always see with St. John's on our Pitino team. Happily high on them. And St. John's will be contending again for a back-to-back season. Sorry, guys, I cannot breathe. I'm having like allergies. That's why I missed last night.
I'm with you. It's catching me up here too. But one returning starter: Luis Kaderi, Richmond, Aaron Scott, Wilcher, Devion Smith, Brady Dunlap, Iwachuku, Glover, and Maker all gone from this team. I mean, they brought in, like you said, Hopkins, Sanoan, Dylan Mitchell, Isaiah Sellers, Ian Jackson, and Dylan Darling. So I mean, they brought in some shooters, which was their Achilles heel last year, was being able to score the ball when needed and win games more than like 65 to 58. So I feel like Pitino kind of plugged those holes a little bit. Zubia Ejiofor back, coming back for St. John's here. I really like that. Spoiler, I kind of like Zuby to win the Kareem award this year, plus 450. Little early spoiler, but I think St. John's will be fine. I mean, if Patino's went into the portal, got guys that he wants, knows who he wants, and it works out. Last year, the scoring wasn't there. RJ Luis, that whole saga to end the year with him and Pitino, but I feel like they got some scores. They got some dogs. Pitino knows what he wants. I think these guys all know what they're getting into when they sign on to Rick Pitino school. So I'm high on St. John's. I think they're going to do exactly what they did last year. I think they're just going to be a little bit more successful offensively, which was really what killed them last year, especially in the postseason. So I like St. John's. I like Pitino. I like this whole squad. Very high on the Red Storm.
Yeah, just want to shout out Parlay P. Thanks for the money. Appreciate you. Appreciate you joining in and just talk. Listen to a couple guys talking ball. So thanks for that.
Hey, Parlay P, friend of the program. We've done some Twitter Spaces with him. He's a stand-up dude. Parlay P is worth the follow. Make sure to shout him out. I just quote tweeted his Twitter. I retweet him all the time because he's winning all the time in college football, all the sports. He's really good. Make sure to give Parlay P a follow. And thank you for your donation, man. That means a lot for your support. And happy to do college basketball with you and collab, brother. So make sure, I think it's just Parlay P on Twitter. Make sure to drop your handle in the chat and we'll declare it. And yeah, he's been killing it in college football. So I think he's hitting at like a 75% hit rate, something like that. So thank you again, Parlay P, for tuning in, and thanks everyone in the chat. All right. So we're high on St. John's, the penultimate team, not UConn. The Villanova. Oh, sorry.
I was going to talk a little bit, just real quick, about St. John's.
Oh God, sorry, I'm my bad. Sorry, I got distracted. Sorry, I was in the limelight. Thanks, our friend Parlay P. Sorry.
Yeah, no, just I just wanted to echo kind of what Trev said. The Achilles heel last year was shooting the basketball, being a little bit better on the offensive end. And, Isaiah Sellers, a guy that they brought in from Stanford, shoots 40% from the three. He'll kind of assume that point guard role. I think, Pitino's done a great job in the portal ever since this portal era started, and that's kind of been proven there at St. John's. The health of Bryce Hopkins is always a question. He kind of struggled with that last year. Who knows if he was babying it or if he just didn't really want to play on a Providence team that was just kind of complete shit. But I'm really high on Dylan Mitchell, transfer they brought in, played last year at Cincinnati. He was a guy that I was able to watch up close and personal a few times there at K-State in the Big 12 tournament. Really liked how he plays, just how he handles his business, and looking forward to seeing him in Pitino's system. And then Ejiofor, he's my favorite center, my favorite forward really in college basketball. Love watching him play. Had a chance to watch him play. K-State played at St. John's last year, and he just absolutely killed us. Just funny to me that KU was let him go and brought in Hunter Dickinson. It just completely hilarious that they decided to let him go to St. John's, and then they decided to drop the bag on Hunter Dickinson, and it showed just on the defensive end. But Ejiofor, man, he 100%, 150% motor every single play, gets so many loose balls, scrappy player. Your classic Pitino player who's going to probably average 20 and 10 at least, maybe 20 and 12, 25 and 22 and 12, something around there, but just plays on both ends, plays hard, nonstop. Love the way he plays. So yeah, I'm high with you guys on St. John's as well, and I do think they take a step forward there in the offense because Pitino is going to do what he always does, and he's going to bring in the pieces that he needs to fill in those voids and fill in those issues that he had from last season.
And bring in the shaking their booties in the hotel room too. No, we're past that. That never happened apparently for Pitino. So yeah, the fellas are high on the St. John's Red Storm. Penultimate team, Villanova, out of Philadelphia, Villanova, whatever you want to say. Last season, 21-11, 11-9 in the Big East, 0 returning starters for new face, new coach, Kevin Willard. My gosh, why am I blanking on who they got rid of last year? He was horrible. Kyle Neptune. Yeah, he was horrible. So now I don't know if what he did at Maryland to just jump to Villanova, probably the move. I don't know, but he's going to have to build this program up. I think it's going to be an interesting first year. Sometimes first year coaches have been okay in the Big East in years past, but and Willard is a good coach. He definitely brings a solid shooting team. He's going to play physical as well too across the perimeter, and look to bring in some shooters that I'm sure you guys can touch on. But it's a lot of new faces, a whole new rebuild. You got to think that it's definitely going to be some speed bumps along the way as they start to land this program and rebuild it back up. So, but anything's an improvement of these last couple of years, I think, for Villanova fans. And Willard's going to be able to do that, and he's a good coach for the future. Pittsburgh guy, graduated from Pittsburgh. Now he goes to Villanova. So he's back in PA. So maybe that was a move, but Maryland, not far. But again, that was one I was weirded out by in the offseason, but I kind of at peace with it now, and I'm curious to see what happens in the Big East. But for this year, for me, it will be interesting. They'll be middle of the road, maybe even farther back in the Big East more than expected, but it'll still be a step in the right direction for years on end for Villanova, in my opinion. Yeah, Maryland team last year was special.
Yeah, the Maryland team was good. We can go and argue about the tournament game again, but they had a good run. They were a great team, but Willard heads to Villanova, no returning players, 8 portal players. He brought in 3 Maryland players with him, but they averaged 7.5 points a game, almost 6 rebounds a game. So nothing really significant there, but Eric Dixon gone, another huge loss. And then Devin Askew is on the team. We all know how I feel about Devin Askew. So that's already a -1 in the power rankings for Villanova for me. But they brought in Zion Stanford, Bryce Lindsey, and Duke Brennan. Some solid guard play, but their front court this is another Big East team with questions in the front court that I have. I think their guard play will be just fine. But the size and physicality down low, I don't think is necessarily there entirely. So I think that's going to be their Achilles heel. I think, Willard coming back to the Big East, and now he's got, some decent guards, but it's going to kind of be a problem around the rim. I'm not incredibly high on Villanova. I do think, Willard could do a better job than Neptune. Neptune had all the talent in the world there and can never do anything. Missed the tournament, I believe, every single one of his years. So can only go up for Villanova from here. I'm just curious to how it'll go this year, given all the new additions and the losses. to the roster for Villanova. But I think they'll kind of be hanging around where they were last year. I think that'll be a win for Willard, and given what Neptune had on that team, where they finished last year was a major L. So, yep, decently high on Villanova, but not over the moon on this team.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, front court maybe a little bit of an issue. They did bring in Duke Brennan, 6'10" guy from Green Canyon. However, coming over from the WAC, how is that going to translate into uh, the Big East? And then they bring in that couple 7-footers, Braden Pierce, the guy that came in from over Maryland, and then a 7-footer that's a freshman. Forgetting his name right now. And then they also bring in a 6'9" guy, Gapare, another guy that averaged very few minutes, didn't really produce there at Maryland. I think when I was looking into it a little bit before the show, just of like maybe why Willard left, I think he was really kind of questioning where Maryland was going, kind of with the athletics. They let go of the athletic director. That kind of left a bad taste in his mouth. So I think he just decided to part ways. I thought it was a little bit weird for him to, make that move. Wasn't quite sure why he did that, especially after the year that they just had with the Crab Five. But yeah, I'm kind of. I feel like they've got the talent there in the backcourt to be competitive. It's however their front court's going to be able to step up and possibly withstand some of those other front court. We just mentioned St. John's and Xavier and a couple other front court pieces with like UConn's front court. I think they're just going to be severely overmatched in that regard. But I still think they're going to be, a decent team. Villanova is always going to have that support, always going to have that loyal fan base. And, I expect them to, be around similar type of a record this year, if not maybe a little bit of an improvement, possibly slight, just in terms of I think you do take a step up when it comes to Kyle Neptune and Kevin Willard there in the coaching department. So.
Hey, Coach, what's up? Hey, Xavier Musketeers. Cincinnati, Ohio, the last team in the Big East we're talking about. Last season, 22-12, 13-7, but their coach was Sean Miller, bringing New Mexico's old coach from Rick Pitino's son. And oh man, talent-wise, they're not good on paper. But I do believe Pitino's a good coach. But if you remember his stint in the Big Ten with Minnesota, there were some rough years where he had would struggle to find talent in the tougher conferences. But Xavier's an attractive get. People love going to Xavier, and he does bring in Isaiah Walker from Belmont. Believe a transfer from FAU, and then Mir Panam from North Dakota as well. So a couple pieces coming in from New Mexico, but I think talent-wise it's going to be a struggle, and Xavier may take a step back. But Pitino's a good coach, good hire for the future, and Xavier's maybe not going to be what they were last year with Sean Miller making the tournament. But again, Pitino's here to stay. He's going to, I think, coach for Xavier and try to build this program up, which is a great basketball program, and could always make a run in NCAA March Madness, and a scary team that you don't want to see, especially when they get hot, and another tough place to play in the Cintas Center. So, yeah, I like Xavier, but more so for the future and what they're going to build, not necessarily in their first year starting the rebuild. I'm not too high on them.
Yeah, Xavier, I like the hire for Pitino, but for opening year, it could be rough. I mean, it was rough for him. Obviously, Minnesota, that was his first, I think it was like his second or third year coaching, and he went up to Minnesota. So kind of a shell shock. And then he goes to New Mexico and built a pretty respectable program out there in Albuquerque. So I think he has the ability to do it in Xavier too. I mean, 11 transfers, that's tough. Trey Carroll, they got Messamina Moore, Mier Pananum, and Jovan Milicevic comes with him from New Mexico. So he's got some decent pieces, but Some lesser named guys, Gabriel Pizzato, the Missouri Valley Rookie of the Year Conference, 15 points a game, 4.5 boards. He got 2 7-footers that combined for almost 4 blocks a game that he brought in. All right, our guy, our all names team guy, is also here. Tino brought in, some good pieces. They look good on paper, but how's it all going to mesh? I mean, he's coming in for the first time, staff turnover, entire roster turnover. Got to figure this out. And it's not like he brought in some elite names into the portal, but I still think this is, a good roster and a good coach. So given how much they've, their roster turnover, how, not bottom heavy, top heavy this league is with the conference or the competition kind of in the basement, and 6 on is kind of similar to themselves. I think Xavier can have a decent year under Pitino. I think he made his mistakes and then he built up New Mexico to be what it was, and now I think he's going to go to Xavier and do the same thing here. So I like Xavier. I like Pitino. I think this is going to be a good year for the X-Men.
Yeah, great hire here. Another type of team where they bring in a lot of mid-major pieces coming up to the high major ranks. So we'll see how kind of successful they can be here at this level. Kind of a guy that I'm interested to see how he can kind of translate is Isaiah Walker. Comes from Belmont, played about 33 minutes a game last year, averaged just under 11 points a game. I think he's going to be a guy that's going to be relied upon heavily. And then All Right, you had mentioned him, the All Missouri Valley Freshman of the Year last year. Not only on the all teams name, but also a hell of a player. Averaged 15.5 points per game for Valpo last year. So 2 guards that were solid there at the mid-major level. And I think that can be pretty good here in the high major ranks. However, I think the talent is just lacking in terms when you compare it to the other Big East schools. But that's not to say, Pitino there at New Mexico did a hell of a job of recruiting, hell of a job coaching there. Didn't have a lot of good funding, with just New Mexico being more of known as a football school. So for the most part, a lot of the NIL stuff was getting spent on football, not basketball. And so hence the change to Xavier, where you're spending almost all your money exclusively on basketball. So give it a year or two, and I feel like Xavier is going to be near the top of the Big East. But until then, I think they might struggle a little bit, take a little bit of a step back this year, especially with the new coach, 11 transfers coming in. But I'm high on them here in the future.
Consensus higher. Trevor may be higher this season. So let's figure it all out. Let's rank them top to bottom, bottom ups. 11th for me is going to be Seton Hall. I think they're the worst team in the conference. 11th.
11th for me is also Seton Hall.
Yeah, 11th for me is Seton Hall, and I will say from the media day today, the coaches poll also ranked Seton Hall at the bottom as well.
I've gone back and forth on this one, but 10th for me is going to be 10th is going to be Butler.
I also have Butler at 10.
Yeah, I'm going to have a DePaul at 10, actually. And 10th in the coach's poll is Butler.
9th for me is going to be Xavier. I think it's a tough year for them, first year.
9th for me is DePaul.
9th for me is Butler. 9th for the coaches is DePaul.
8th for me is DePaul. We'll step up for them. Come on.
8th for me is Providence.
8th for me is Xavier. Same with coaches.
7th for me is Villanova.
7th for me is Georgetown.
7th for me, Villanova.
6 for me is Georgetown.
6 for me is Xavier.
6 for me is Providence.
5th for me is Providence.
5th for me is Villanova.
5th for me is Georgetown.
4th for me is Marquette.
4th for me is Creighton.
I'm with Creighton at 4 as well.
I have Creighton at 3. I'm sure you
Got
guys have
Marquette
Marquette at 3.
Yep, Marquette 3.
Correct.
And then number 2 for me is St. John's, and number 1 for me is UConn. I think they're the clear favorites for this conference, and like I said, we'll be playing with a little chip on their shoulder as well.
2 for me is UConn. 1 for me is St. John's.
All right,
Yep.
repeats with Patino. Repito.
2 for UConn, 2 for me, UConn, 1 St. John's as well. I'm whichever.
All right, hell yeah, boys. Look at that. Under an hour, 15-minute episode talking Big East. We got P5 schools coming up, a lot of conferences, so we'll have to get those in. A lot of teams in one conference. My top 10 is Connecticut, St. John's, Creighton, Marquette, Providence, Georgetown, Villanova, DePaul. I may be high. 9 Xavier, 10 Butler, 11 Seton Hall.
Yeah, I got St. John's, UConn, Marquette, Creighton, Villanova, Xavier, Georgetown, Providence, DePaul, Butler, Seton Hall.
Yeah, for me, number 1 St. John's, 2 UConn, 3 Marquette, 4 Creighton, 5 Georgetown, 6 Providence, 7 Villanova, 8 Xavier, 9 Butler, 10 DePaul, and 11 Seton Hall.
That's it. You heard it here first. This is the Big East podcast conference preview for the Pump Fake Pod. Pump Fake Podcast. Follow us on at Pump Fake Pod on YouTube, Twitter. You can find us, some other sources as well. We'll start getting the ball rolling as we get these betting episodes launched. Really excited to get the season going. Elliot, Trevor, any final thoughts here as we round out with only 4 conference previews left?
No, I'm just ready for the season to start. I'm ready.
Wonderful. Raymond, Redman, Ken, Coach, Parlay P, thank you for the donation. Everyone in the
Appreciate
chat,
it.
thanks for tuning in. It's going to be a great season. We're going to appreciate the community that we're building here, and everyone's built here. And this gambling community is not always toxic like people like to display. We always have a good camaraderie, and we appreciate you guys really getting started into the season. This is the Big East preview. We are the Pump Fake Pod. Make sure to like and subscribe, like the video, and thanks for all the support. Haze us, like us, we'll take it all, and we're going to get the season rolling. See you tomorrow for a Big 12 conference preview.
Toodles.